hid under the back porch of my abusive mother. While I was there, I found my deceased father. I was a master of hiding, but not for a good reason. However, one night, I chose to do something different. I could hear my mother's screams. She was furious and about to become violent. My father wasn't helping, only fueling the fire. I had abusive parents and we lived basically in the middle of nowhere on a farm. Based on that, I knew I needed to find a good place to hide. I had the idea a few days before when I realized that the lattice covering the lower half of the back porch had a hole. Not big enough for an adult probably, but a slim 6-year-old could fit without a problem. So wrapping myself in my blanket and taking my stuffed hippopotamus, I sneaked out the window and ran to the yard. In the middle of autumn, when it was 40 degrees and the temperature kept dropping steadily, I crawled under the porch, scratching my elbows and getting splinters in my palms, but I managed to fit in there. It was actually quite spacious compared to most of my hiding spots. I couldn't stand up completely, but I had enough room to stretch my limbs. Sure. I was also getting dirty. It had rained a few days before, so the mud was still a bit wet. I wrapped myself in my blanket as best as I could and curled up for the night, but soon, even with my blanket and hippo, my teeth were chattering so hard I could barely breathe. However, I didn't want to go back inside knowing that if my mother caught me, I was about to get the beating of my life. "Sweetheart, are you cold?" That voice wasn't my father's, hoarse from smoking and screaming. It was sweet like honey. I turned to see the vague silhouette of a man lying prone beside me. He wore a beautiful butterfly necklace and was as dirty as I was. I nodded without wondering how he had gotten down there without me noticing. The man moved closer and wrapped his arms around me, and suddenly I felt warm like I was sitting next to a campfire. I snuggled into his arms, not caring about the mud. After all, we were both dirty. "You've grown so much," the man said, examining my face. "How old are you now, Alex?" 6? How do I know this man again? I didn't think I knew him at 6, I thought. The man gasped. "You're so big already. I'm so happy." He sighed pleasantly and stroked my hair. "What's your name?" I asked. He smiled. I could hear it in his voice. "I'm Leo. What's your favorite thing to do?" I had to think for a second. "I like board games and coloring." Leo laughed. "Just like me, I never got tired of playing Scrabble, but I think you're still too young for that, right?" I shook my head. "Too many words, but I want to play." "Will you play with me?" Leo inhaled sharply. "I don't think I can. Your mother put me down here and I can't get out." "But," he thought for a second. "Alex, could you do me a favor?" "Sure," I thought. This man was very nice. Why wouldn't I do him a favor? "When you wake up in the morning, go to the police station, ask for an officer named Lorraine Joyce. Tell her where to find Leo, okay? Under your back porch. She'll come and get me out, alright? And then maybe we can play Scrabble." I was so excited at the possibility of playing Scrabble that I didn't notice how Leo's voice got caught at the end. "I will. We can be on the same team. Right?" Leo laughed softly. "I'll help you understand the rules. Good night, Alex." When I woke up the next morning, I heard Leo's voice. "Go now. Your mother went to work. I'll tell you how to get to the police station." Rubbing my eyes, I crawled out from under the porch and went inside to put on my shoes and a coat. I was shivering from the cold, but thought Leo was right behind me. After putting on my shoes and coat, I started walking. It took me long enough to reach the neighbor's house. I don't really remember how long it took to get to the police station, although I don't know why no one stopped to see what the hell a 6-year-old in dirty pajamas was doing walking down the road. Leo really guided me along. "Wait. Okay. Cross the street now. Turn right here." I almost passed out from exhaustion when I entered the police station. The guys outside chatting and having fun didn't see me until I was almost at the reception desk. "Wow kid, are you alright?" One of the policewomen knelt to my level with wide eyes. I nodded. "I'm fine, can I talk to Joyce?" I asked. One of the other officers picked me up. "Sure, kid. Sure. Let's just get you somewhere warm. Good God, your lips are blue." They gave me hot chocolate, wrapped me in a blanket when an older woman with a gray mustache sat beside me. "Hi, kid. I'm Sheriff Joyce. What's your name?" she asked. "Alex." I put my cup aside and looked her straight in the eyes. "I was told to tell you that Leo is under the back porch. He needs to be freed so we can play Scrabble." I had never seen a grown woman turn pale before. Now you can check if there is a part 2 by pressing share and more. Part 2. I hid under my abusive mother's back porch. I found my deceased father while I was down there. I had never seen a grown woman turn pale before. Many things became confusing from that moment on. I remember being taken back to my house where there were many police cars and people around. The back porch was surrounded by yellow tape, and someone was taking away a black bag while my mother was handcuffed. After that, I went to live with my grandparents, Sheriff Joyce and her husband. I tried to ask what had happened and who Leo was, but I was always silenced. I was too young to know, but life got much better. Grandma was the best woman I could have hoped for in my life. We went out on weekends to the movies where she would let me have a giant soda even though I had to go to the bathroom halfway through the movie. When I asked if I could drink at 13, she let me try a beer. I spat it out and never touched it again. She never judged me for my love of art, letting me paint my room several times over the years. I felt safe by her side. She never raised her hand against me. When I turned 16, Grandma took me back to my mother's house. Everything had been torn down, but I could still see the yellow tape wrapped around some trees faded and torn. We sat together in the back of her truck. She opened a beer and drank half before taking out an orange soda for me. After drinking, she told me that Leo was my father. Luckily, she didn't tell me while I was swallowing. My father? I asked confused. Your real father. The man who lived with your mother was not your father. My grandmother took another beer. Leo was my son. I loved him so much, but when you were about 6 months old, he disappeared. My stomach sank. My mother just imprisoned him under the porch? I asked, starting to feel sick. Grandma took a deep sigh before leaving the beer unopened. It's something I could never understand. Leo told you to find me and that he loved crosswords. Right? He kept me warm that night. I probably would have died frozen if he hadn't been there. I was a dumb kid, even I knew that. My grandmother was silent before opening the beer and drinking it all. Alex, Leo was dead all the time. He was dead when we found him. There were only bones left. The specialists confirmed it, and your mother confessed to what happened. They had a fight, and she pushed him down the stairs. He broke his neck. She clenched her fists. I knew she had something to do with his disappearance, but I never had proof until you walked into my sheriff's office covered in dirt and told me he was under the porch. I was in shock. I couldn't breathe. All I could do was nod, but I saw him. He was alive. He had that butterfly necklace. I remained silent when Grandma took a small evidence bag out of her pocket. It was the necklace. As I looked at the now empty lot, the cold air seeped into my skin, a deep fear creeping into my bones. Grandma started the car, her expression somber and unwavering. It was then that I noticed something out of place in her expression. Something that reflected my own fear. Grandma, I said, swallowing hard. What is this? She took a deep sigh, her fingers drumming on the steering wheel before finally responding. You said Leo, your father, kept you warm that night. She seemed to be struggling with something, her words caught in her throat. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, she turned to me with a pale face, her eyes full of concern. Your father wasn't the only one your mother buried under that porch, Alex. My heart pounded in my chest. I felt a chill run down my spine as I looked at Grandma. My mind unable to comprehend what she was saying. What do you mean? I choked on the words, my throat dry. Are you saying that I choked on the words, my heart pounding. Are you saying there are more people under the porch? She simply nodded, a tormented look in her eyes. At that moment, the fear I had felt amplified, enveloping me like a suffocating shroud. Leo wasn't the only one. There were other men my mother had betrayed, deceived, and killed. My grandmother opened the glove compartment as she explained. She claimed it was a tradition. She tried to explain it to me, saying it was some kind of ritual. I didn't believe her until we discovered she was serious. That cursed our entire family. I saw tears in her eyes. She took out a gun wrapped in a towel. I began to tense up. Grandma, what are you doing with that? Alex, it's only a matter of time before you become just like your mother, and I become just like you. I saw a tear run down her cheek. She put the gun in my hand and whispered in my ear, pull the trigger so I don't have to. I'll go right after.